Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the SPIF rollout for July 2025. We'll get started in just a few moments. For everybody joining us on the call today, you will receive a copy of the presentation afterwards via email. Additionally, you can rewatch this presentation on DPD's YouTube page. We'll get started in just a few moments. Again, welcome everyone. My name is Kim Brisky. I am the Director of Communications at Summer Corps. We are the administrator of the SPIF program for the Department of Planning and Development. Welcome to the July 2025 SPIF District Rollout presentation. Everybody who is attending this call today will receive a copy of this presentation via email. You can also rewatch it on DPD's YouTube page. If you have any questions during this conversation, please feel free to put them in the Q&A box so that we can answer them throughout the presentation. We will also have an extended Q&A session at the end of the event. Without further ado, we will turn it over to Nora Curry at the Department of Planning and Development. Nora?
Thanks, Kim, and good afternoon, everybody. As Kim said, my name is Nora Curry. I'm the SPIF Program Director for the City of Chicago Department of Planning and Development, or DPD. And on behalf of the City of Chicago, I want to thank you for joining us today. The Small Business Improvement Fund, known as SPIF, provides grants on a reimbursement basis to small businesses and property owners to make permanent improvements to their properties. We are excited to announce our latest improvement to the program, an online application. Transitioning to this new application format improves our processing speed so we can all get down to work on your project faster. One thing that hasn't changed over the years is the ample assistance available to you as a SPIF applicant. Technical assistance is a key strength of the SPIF program, and when you submit your application, you will be assigned a SPIF project manager. That person is there to help you. If you have questions about your application or run into problems such as delays with your city permits or your contractor, call your Summer Corps project manager immediately. They can help you resolve confusion and roadblocks, and they can accommodate needed changes with your grant. Your local delegate agency is another great resource for you. They may be the local Chamber of Commerce or Community Development Corporation that told you about today's webinar. Sylvia will list their names later in the presentation. And like your SPIF project manager, delegate agencies are here to help you. They can help with the SPIF application, they can make introductions to local lenders, and they can guide you through the required city processes. We are all here to help you, to support your application, and to help your businesses and your neighborhoods flourish. So please don't hesitate to call us whenever you need us. With that, I'm happy to introduce Sylvia Orozco, SPIF Director for Summer Corps.
Thank you, Nora, and thank you all for joining us today. As she mentioned, my name is Sylvia Orozco. I am the director of the SPIF program. For over 19 years, I've assisted hundreds of existing business owners, landlords, and startups. The SPIF program is administered by Summer Corps. Summer Corps is a non-for-profit small business lender. We offer SBA loans, administer the SPIF program, and also administer the Neighborhood Opportunity Fund program known as NOF. Celebrating its 25th year, SPIF is one of the most longest running and most successful City of Chicago programs. We've helped retain and expand businesses in nearly every neighborhood and dispersing over $119 million to over 2,100 businesses. Please be advised that this is a non-residential program. The grant cannot be used for capital or operating expenses. It is specifically for infrastructure repairs. So let's get started with today's presentation. Thanks again for joining us. So today we will go over what is SPIF. What is the program mission, grant parameters, and the project timeline? Getting started, is your business or property in a SPIF district? What SPIF districts are open or on deck? What are the SPIF program rules? How do you apply, and what resources are available to help? We will have the list of July rollouts as well as a sample project for you. We will go over some SPIF facts and have an additional question and answer session at the end. Launched in 1999, the City of Chicago's Small Business Improvement Fund, known as SPIF, promotes economic development by providing small businesses and landlords with reimbursement grants for permanent building improvement costs. Residential projects are not eligible. SPIF grants use local tax increment financing, known as TIF, revenue to reimburse grantees for the pre-approved repair or rehab of their business facilities or adjacent land acquisition. Summer Corps is a program administrator contracted by the cities of Chicago's Department of Planning and Development. Grant parameters. The property must be in a TIF district where SPIF funds are available and is authorized to accept applications. The type of applicants that are eligible for SPIF includes landlords of either commercial or industrial properties, owners and operators of commercial or industrial business owners who own their property, tenants with prior written approval from property owners, and startups may apply with the business plan. A current Chicago business license is required. Eligibility for commercial or industrial landlords, the net worth cumulative must be $9 million or less, and the liquid assets must be less than $500,000 per individual in order to qualify for the SPIF program. As a commercial tenant or owner occupied, on average, your gross sales must be $9 million or less per year. For industrial tenants or owner occupied industrial applicants, you must have 200 or fewer full-time employees. All owner-occupied properties are subject to the same rules as the landlords. Grant size. $250,000 is the max per industrial property. $150,000 is the max per commercial property that is occupied by a single owner or tenant. $250,000 is the maximum per commercial property that's occupied by multiple owners or tenants, with $75,000 being the maximum assistance per individual applicant. SPIF applications and SPIF grants are non-transferable between applicants and/or properties. The applicants who wish to apply for SPIF funds for more than one property must submit separate applications for each property. Applicants may receive one or more grants up to their maximum program assistance. Once this maximum is reached, the applicants will need to wait 3 years to reapply. Reimbursement for commercial businesses with sales or net worth that fall between $0 to $3 million. They qualify for 90% reimbursement of eligible cost. For commercial businesses with sales or net worth between $3 to $6 million are eligible to receive 60% reimbursement of eligible cost, and sales or net worth between $6 to $9 million would be eligible for 30% reimbursement of eligible cost. All industrial projects qualify for 50% of eligible cost of reimbursement. Here we have a grant calculation example. Grace submits an application for a SPIF grant in an open district, with a total eligible project cost of $100,000. She's proposing to make building improvements to her existing retail shop for which she is a tenant. Grace has been in business for 5 years. Over the last 3 years, her gross sales averaged $1.5 million. Here we have a breakdown of eligible cost as follows. With the total eligible project cost at $100,000, as a commercial tenant applicant with gross sales under $3 million, she qualifies for 90% reimbursement. The city's responsibility at 90% is $90,000, and the applicant's responsibility at 10% is $10,000. The SPIF program is a reimbursement grant so project participants should be prepared with financing to support the cost of the permanent building improvements. The applicants are encouraged to contact their business lender or reach out to one of the lenders listed on the Summer Corps' website in a timely manner. Grantees may choose to complete their project in phases rather than covering 100% of the project cost up front. To participate, the grantees must receive an approval for the full scope of work and the phase work schedule. The construction timing will be based on necessity and the contractor's recommendations. Receiving phase disbursements will be based on the progress of work. So here we have a sample of a phased project. Let's say the applicant needs to do a complete roof tear off, a new HVAC system, and facade renovations. However, their contract price came up to $180,000. They do not have the full $180,000 available, so we are giving them the opportunity to break out the project into 3 different phases. So with 90% reimbursement, the maximum the applicant can receive is up to $150,000. For the roofing project, their contract price was at $60,000. So they were able to complete that project and then receive 90% reimbursement, which is the $54,000. So with that disbursement, basically what happens here is once the roofing project is done, you submit your proof of payments and we verify that the work has been done, that reimbursement will be processed. Then that $54,000 can be utilized to finish, to actually complete the HVAC system. So this is the process for the phasing. You can have up to 3 disbursements. Project timeline. For projects that are in stage 1, this is the applicant eligibility review stage. The applications are then completed and the applicants approve site control. They're granted up to 20 days to submit these items. If deemed eligible, they will be moved into stage 2, which is the project eligibility review. Applicants are granted up to 120 days to submit any plans, bids, specifications, and any debts are cured within this time frame. Stage 3 is the project construction stage. Once approved by DPD, the applicants receive a conditional commitment letter and construction begins. They're granted up to 10 months to complete the construction. Concurrently, the proof of permit or permit application must be submitted within 120 days following the date of the commitment letter. Stage 3.4 is a proof of financing stage. The applicant is required to provide a proof of funds. They are granted up to 120 days following the date of the commitment letter to submit proof of financing. Stage 4 is the reimbursement stage. Once the construction is complete, applicants are required to submit their payment documentation. This should include sworn statements, invoices, canceled checks, and final waivers of lien. These should be sent over to Summer Corps for review, and after a final site visit and processing of documents, the reimbursement should be delivered in approximately 4 to 6 weeks. Unless DPD has granted an extension, applicants who do not complete each stage within the required phase time limits will be disqualified and removed from the program. Getting started, is your business or property in a SPIF district? In order to determine if your property falls within a eligible SPIF district, you can visit our website and click here on the locator tool. Once you click on the locator tool, it's going to take you to this screen here. You will then enter the address of the property in question. Once that address is entered, it will give you detailed information, including the name of the TIF district, the rollout date, and the delegate agencies. If for some reason you feel like this information that shows up on here is incorrect, please feel free to reach out to Summer Corps and we'll verify that information for you. Which SPIF districts are open or on deck? Eligible SPIF districts in Chicago span neighborhoods on the north, south, and west sides. Each month marks a new 30-day period in which SPIF districts with available funds open for applications. Notice of district openings are provided to relevant aldermen, posted on the DPD and Summer Corps websites, and included in the spiffgram. You can visit our website at summercorps.com/SBIF for the most up-to-date list of open and on-deck districts. What are the SPIF program rules? Ineligible business types include chain and franchise businesses, places of worship, liquor stores, smoke shops, tobacco dealers, hotels and motels, startup bars, taverns. This is not a comprehensive list, so if you're not sure, please feel free to contact Summer Corps and we will verify eligibility as far as the business type goes. Eligible improvement cost. We can cover roofing and facade work, components of signs and awnings which are permanently affixed to the building, any alterations or structures that are needed for ADA compliance, such as railings or ramps, and even ADA accessible restrooms. HVAC and other mechanical systems, plumbing and electrical work, certain project-related architectural and construction management fees that are related to the project can also be covered. Permanent interior renovations, including fixtures, and the purchase of adjacent land parcels for purposes of expansion or parking. Ineligible improvement costs. Things that are not covered through the SPIF program include new construction, whether it's an addition or expansion, or building from the ground up. Any standalone minor repairs or cosmetic improvements, equipment-related expenses such as appliances, computers, or office furniture are not eligible for reimbursement through SPIF. However, there are a few equipment-related elements that can be covered for restaurants, commercial kitchens, catering companies, which include walk-in coolers and freezers, fire suppression systems, and exhaust hoods. Exhaust hoods, those are the only items that are equipment-related that can be covered through SPIF. Planters that are surrounding or affixed to the building are not eligible. Outdoor dining or drinking areas, including roof decks, beer gardens, outdoor patios, balconies, awnings, porches, and decks. Any fencing, including pergolas, trellises, arbors, privacy screens, and similar structures, parking lot construction or repair, landscaping, and work on interior of residential units do not qualify for reimbursement through SPIF. Design requirements. The applicants for commercial properties seeking a grant of $25,000 or greater are required to make at least one exterior improvement, using at least 10% of the maximum grant amount. To receive project approval from DPD, the improvements must conform to DPD's design guidelines. The applicants are strongly advised to consult with Summer Corps and design professionals on design requirements and guidelines before drawing up plans for work. Key exterior design guidelines reviewed during the approval stage include preserving or recreating the original design and window openings when possible, incorporating permanent signage to clearly identify the business, adequate lighting, especially near entrances to welcome customers, avoiding window clutter. The windows should let in natural light and attract passerbys to the business. Other forms of security are preferred, but if necessary, only interior mounted security gates that are integrated into the storefront design will be reimbursed. What are the SPIF program rules? Now with compliance, applicant compliance, the checks will be performed on all applicants during the approval stage to ensure that they're complying with child support laws and not indebted to the city. Any scofflaw debt must be cured to participate in SPIF. The applicants can cure a debt via a city payment plan. The applicants using a payment plan must be in compliance with that to receive SPIF reimbursement funds. All applicants must be current on property taxes to receive conditional commitment for funding and reimbursement for completed work. Each applicant must sign an economic disclosure affidavit, and the grantees must sign an affidavit certifying that they will not relocate out of the TIF district or sell the business or property within a 3-year period following disbursement of funds. To be reimbursed, the landlord applicants must have an executed lease with the qualified tenant, and that tenant must be occupying and actively operating their business or nonprofit out of the lease space. How do you apply? You can visit our website. There's 2 websites, one for the City of Chicago and one for SummerCore. So you can visit either site to complete the new online application via Submittable. A fillable PDF version is also available to download and complete. PDF applications must be emailed to spiff@summercore.com, timestamped by 5 p.m. on the last day of the rollout period to be eligible. What resources are available to help? You can visit our website at summercore.com/SBIF to access resources to support your SPIF project. You can also connect with your local delegate agency for assistance in filling out your application. So here you will find a list of contractors that are licensed by the City of Chicago. We also have the design guidelines available to you, resources for current applicants, as well as a list of SPIF lenders. These lenders are familiar with the SPIF program and they've helped out many applicants in the past. So we are also able to sign a bank assignment so that the proceeds of the grant go directly to the lender to pay off a portion of your loan. And as the applicant, you would be responsible for paying off the remaining balance. Here we have the list of delegate agencies that you should definitely get to know. These organizations are assigned to assist small businesses in the districts that are opening in July. So please look at the TIF district that you're located in and familiarize yourself with the organization. Feel free to reach out for assistance in completing the application and technical assistance throughout the process. So for the month of July, we are currently accepting applications through July 30th at 5 p.m. The districts that are open are Greater Southwest Industrial East, Lawrence and Broadway, Washington Park, West Woodlawn, and Woodlawn. Here we have a sample project. This project is in the West Woodlawn TIF district. This is Reach for the Stars Child Care Academy located on 64th and King Drive. Here we have a few before pictures before the renovations began. This next slide will show you the after pictures once that work was complete. As you can see, it was a drastic difference here. Many new elements of the property that were completed here. So here they basically did a gut rehab of the entire facility with the removal of the existing roofing system down to the decking and the tile copings. They repaired the parapet walls and wood decking as needed, installed new insulation, modified membrane, new flashing, reinstalled the existing copings, applied a silver coating, new vents, flashing, pipes, and drains. Flooring work throughout for all levels, including new concrete, priming, and new hardwood, vinyl tile, and ceramic tile throughout. The electrical work included the installation of a 500 amp 3-phase electrical service. SPIF facts. What additional documents should you have on hand to submit along with the SPIF application? So while it's not required when submitting the initial application form, please note that these items are required to complete the SPIF application process. The required documents vary depending on the applicant type. Once your application is processed, you will receive a list of items that are necessary based on your applicant type. So if you operate a business there, you'd be required to submit business tax returns for the past 3 years, a copy of your license, Everyone is required to submit their proof of site control. Some of these items will be provided to you as far as templates to be completed, and some items will be the responsibility for you to submit to Summer Corps. But we'll give you a final list once we process your specific application. Are startups or new businesses eligible? Yes, most startups can apply. Startup applicants will need to supply a detailed business plan and projections of the business's income and expenses for its first 36 months of operation as part of their application materials. The City of Chicago reserves the right to impose additional conditions for funding in connection with startup business applications. If you have only been in business for 1 to 2 years, Summer Corps requires tax returns and a projection of gross sales to equal 3 years of data. Are you eligible if you live outside of Chicago? The important consideration is where you have your business or your property that you're looking to obtain SPIF funds for. To participate in SPIF, your property must be in the City of Chicago, as the funding source comes from the City of Chicago property taxes. If your business or property is in another area, please call that city's planning, economic development, or community development department to see what other programs may be available to assist small businesses. What if your building has both business and residential spaces? This program is for business use, but there are mixed use exceptions. Many envelope projects such as roofing, facade improvements, and tuck pointing can be eligible. Can SPIF be used with other City of Chicago grant programs? The answer is no. SPIF cannot be used at the same time as other financial assistance programs like the Neighborhood Opportunity Fund or Chicago Recovery Plan grants on the same project covering the same work. However, you may apply for multiple grants at the same time and select the best fit for your project, provided that you stay within the grant timeline requirements. Will there be enough SPIF funds for all applicants? Each TIF district that has the SPIF program authorized in it has limited funds reserved for the program. If the demand for SPIF funds is greater than the available funding supply, then a lottery will be conducted to determine the order in which each grant application may be accommodated. If any surplus funds become available, they will be allocated to waitlisted applicants. Is there funding available in your district? Every SPIF area has its own budget that the city refills if it has TIF funds available and if there's a demonstrated need for more grant money. We also maintain an interested parties list for funds, which you can also send an email to spiff@summercorps.com to join. When more funding becomes available or the city allocates more funds, we will let you know. The interested parties list helps the City of Chicago gauge demand for additional funding. What if you are in a TIF and not in a SPIF? Tax increment financing, known as TIF, is the mechanism that funds the SPIF program. If you are in a TIF district and it does not have a SPIF, please contact your alderman. Here is our contact information for the SPIF team, as well as Nora Curry, Director of the SPIF program with the Department of Planning and Development. Here we have both of our websites listed as well. Please note that the chicago.gov/SBIF website has the Google Translate available. These resources can be translated in other languages. Just as a reminder, a copy of the presentation and a link to a video will be emailed to all attendees. I can get started with questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sylvia, for that. Appreciate it. I always think that the easiest way to start is just having the discussion of like, what are the most common challenges that you see for SPIF applicants?
The most common, the first, since this is a reimbursement grant, is upfront financing. So don't get discouraged about not having the financing readily available to you. You do have an opportunity to still go through the process and get that financing in place. So that's one of the biggest challenges. So again, I suggest to reach out to your current lender. You've already established a relationship with them. You can let them know that you're participating in the SPIF program. If they're hesitant, if they need more information, we'll be more than happy to walk them through the process. So that's one of the biggest challenges. Again, keep in mind that we have a list of lenders on our website that are familiar with the program. They know how it works and they've helped previous SPIF recipients get through the process. So keep that in mind as well.
That's great.
Another challenge, sorry, would be getting a good contractor and architects. So you want to make sure that you vet the companies, get multiple bids. We require a minimum of 2 bids. I always suggest to get as many as you possibly can. You get the feel for how responsive they are, how knowledgeable they are of what it is that they're doing. So I suggest getting multiple bids. Same thing goes for architects as well. You don't have to settle for one architect. Keep in mind that you are paying them for services. At the end of the day, it's ultimately your responsibility. So you want to make sure that things are moving along and they're doing exactly what it is that you need them to do.
That's really helpful. As a reminder, anybody who has questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A chat box now. We had one person was asking can a business apply if their construction is nearing completion and is already complete? Are they still eligible for SPIF?
Oh, no, unfortunately not. No, we cannot reimburse for anything that is already completed or in process. So unfortunately, we cannot assist in this situation.
And then to clarify for anybody who maybe hasn't done the work yet and is applying for SPIF, at what point are they able to break ground and start the construction process?
So if they're seeking SPIF funding, they should wait as long as they possibly can until they get an official conditional commitment letter from the City of Chicago. Otherwise, any payments that are made prior to obtaining that letter, they will not be eligible for reimbursement. So if you made a payment June 15th and you get your approval July 2nd, unfortunately, that payment will not be eligible for reimbursement. So if you can hold off, I suggest holding off as long as you possibly can. We try to move as quickly as we can throughout this process, but if there's something urgent, we may be able to work a little bit faster to get things approved for you.
Great. I have a question here that says they are a 501c3 religious institution. They want to know if that is eligible. They have a growing space rental that they do. Their business is renting space and for weddings and commercial, even though they themselves are a nonprofit.
So if the business is a for-profit business and it's not a startup banquet hall, it could potentially be eligible. So we don't accept any new startups for banquet halls, bars, or event spaces. So we'd have to look into how long the business has been in operations and make sure that there's no places of worship within that property.
Great. So I would say for that person who made that request, send maybe a side email, spiff@summercore.com, so we can kind of dig in a little bit further. We had somebody who asked for some clarification on multi-tenant, like how big your grant portion can be. Does everybody who's in that building have to apply? Can you talk a little bit more about applying as a multi-tenant property?
Sure. So a multi-tenant property can get up to $250,000 as a whole. However, each applicant can only get $75,000. So let's say you have 3 spaces, 3 commercial spaces. If only one applicant wants to apply, they can get up to $75,000. If both, let's say the landlord and one of the tenants apply, each can get up to $75,000 to cover their specific work that they're looking to do. So that's basically the cap. 75 per applicant would be the max as an individual applicant, but the property as a whole cannot exceed over $250,000. So I hope that clarifies things. If not, you guys can always reach out separately and we'll be more than happy to make sure that you understand, and your questions are answered.
Great. Somebody said that they own a 4-unit corporate rental building in Washington Park. I suppose it doesn't clarify if it is an apartment building or if it is a commercial space. But maybe could you say if this is an apartment building, would that apply? And if it was somebody who owns a 4-unit commercial space, if that would apply or be eligible?
Yeah, so if it's strictly residential, unfortunately, it will not be eligible for SPIF since we don't cover any residential work at all. If it is a mixed-use building, we can only cover the interior of the ground floor that covers the eligible commercial spaces. We can also do the shell of the building, which includes any facade work, tuck pointing, and roofing work. So we can cover work based off of eligible tenants. If, let's say, there's an ineligible tenant, if someone, is operating a Dunkin' Donuts out of one of the spaces, then we'd have to prorate and exclude any work that's being done to their space.
Got it. So I know that you talked a little bit in the presentation that you can't apply for NOF or other city grants that covers the same work in the same space at the same time with SPIF. But what if they at one point received an NOF or other community development grant in the past? How does that work with SPIF?
So with SPIF specifically, there is a rule in place where every dollar that is received or is set to receive within the past 3 years, it's basically going to be deducted dollar for dollar for what you would be eligible for SPIF. So I can give you an example. Let's say you qualify for $150,000 for SPIF. However, you received an NOF grant for $100,000 2 years ago. So in this situation, your SPIF eligibility would be reduced by that $100,000 and you'd only qualify for $50,000.
If that NOF grant was received more than 3 years ago, would that reset how much you would be eligible then for?
Yes, so if it's over 3 years ago, then you would be eligible for the maximum once again, but anything received or, conditionally set to be received prior to the SPIF application, it will be deducted.
Let's see. I'm just reading this question. Okay, so I think this person wants to know a little bit more about getting landlord approval if they are a tenant. Is there a specific letter? Let's say, for example, they want to be able to repair the property to be able to have a food service business. So what would be the conversation that you would have with a landlord at that point to be able to participate in SPIF?
So we do have a template that must be completed by the landlord, which does need to be notarized. So they're basically giving authorization for you as a tenant to make repairs to their property. So on that form, it will have the grantee's information, which is the applicant's information, the landlord, PIN number, address, and the detailed scope of work that you're looking to do. So that's basically your written approval from your landlord to complete work on their property. So other than that, you will need site control, which will be a lease agreement for a minimum of at least 3-year term going forward from the date that you apply. So
that was going to be my next question. Yeah.
So let's say, for example, you apply today, you only have 2 years left on your lease. So in this case, you would have to extend your lease for at least another year. We're basically trying to protect you at this point. We don't want you to invest in someone else's property and then they have the right to basically kick you out and, charge someone else a higher rent because now you fixed up their space. So we want you to utilize the space as long as you possibly can. So that's why we require a minimum of a 3-year term on that lease.
And in the case that maybe they don't have a lease yet, but the district is open, is a letter of intent something that would allow them to at least apply? And then what would be the timeline to actually get a signed lease?
So they can still apply without the executed lease. However, before moving to the next stage, they do have to have a fully executed lease agreement. So we begin accepting the applications the beginning of the month through the end of the month. Then there's about a 2-week period where we determine if we need to conduct a lottery or not. We'll let people know if there's a lottery that needs to be conducted in their area. Otherwise, we go ahead and get started with processing the applications. Then you're granted that 20-day time frame to submit your proof of site control and any other required documentation. So you're looking at roughly about 30 days or so to still negotiate that lease agreement.
Great. All right, I think that is it for any new questions coming in. So thank you, Sylvia, so much. For everyone, just as a reminder, everyone who was on this call today will get a copy of this presentation. You can also rewatch it on DPD's YouTube page. And we look forward to seeing all of your applications. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, Kim, and thanks everyone else.